A very warm welcome to Happy Times and Places, which is a positively inclined Doctor Who episode commentary podcast in which I, Toby Hadoke, ask a friend to choose a Doctor Who story. I'll then watch and commentate along and try to see if I can guess what their favourite things about it are.
Hi Toby, Daisy Connolly here, retired comedian. Today I'm going to talk to you about the 5 things that I love about my Who story, which is Terror of the Zygons. Now then, that came out in 1975 and I was 11 years old and I watched it as it was broadcast. It was absolutely brilliant.
Oh, Daisy, Daisy, Daisy. She's given me her answer too. I mean, she did. Oh, that's Daisy Connolly, retired stand-up, she says, but also writer. One of those very artistic people. She's you can't see the visuals, but she's there with her wonderful pink hair in part, blonde in others. She's a colourful character and somebody who puts a smile on your face through. Effervescence is wrong because I think sometimes that can be kind of overbearing, but she's just cheerful and joyous and infectiously good company. And it reminds me of a couple of things, sadly, is that Daisy was one of the first people to reply and do this process. So before I'd done any of the podcasts and before before they'd come out, and as you know, we're now on story 71, 72. But I sort of mixed things up a bit. I think I was also cautious of doing highly regarded stories all in one go at the top because they got picked. You know, a few people in a flurry sort of picked off some of the the favourites, as it were. And also I wanted to separate her from her partner, Derek, who did Nightmare of Eden back in the day, and they're both Tom Baker stories as well. So I'm trying to have gaps between doctors and between kinds of contributors, although Derek is a very different character to Daisy, but it's just associations in my mind. So this is sort of by way as an apology to Daisy, that she was one of the first people to respond positively and do this silly podcast, and it's taken her this long to hear the fruits of her labour. You're not the longest, Daisy. I think poor old Steve Lyons is waiting for me to watch the Sensorites, Matt Evenden, the Keys of Maninus, and I think they did their recordings before the dawn of time. Anyway, I try and mix and match, and also I've been trying to do a lot more sort of newer Who episodes recently that I'd been a bit slow doing, and that also people didn't gobble up either. So anyway, for whatever reason, my apologies, Daisy. So lovely to see her face. In fact, I don't think I've seen Daisy since my birthday, the year I moved to London, which would be, oh my goodness, about 2007. That's terrifying. No, but maybe because you think you're sort of in touch with people because you're Facebook friends, and we are, and I sort of see what she's up to, and she probably sees what I'm up to, and you can drop messages to people. Oh, but yeah, because that was before my goodness. And I remember because she bought me some toffee, those toffee cup things. I remember bringing me those. It was a very sweet present. People, there's a few of my mates from the comedy circuit. It was the last time I had a proper sort of, because I was newly. Yeah, I was kind of on my own and in a bit of a funny old place, and so just sort of put the word out to a few mates, and nobody ever comes out for my birthday because it's January the 2nd when everyone's asleep. So I think I just put sort of word out on the circuit and just went, I'm going to be in this pub. It's the Queen of Hearts, I think. If anybody wants to join me, and to my surprise, quite a few people did. So my self-image of going, oh, nobody comes out for my birthday. In fact, I've just said it. As easily as breathing. Nobody comes out for my birthday. And actually some people, and not people that have ever been to my house. Do you know what I mean? Not people whose wedding I've been to and vice versa, turned out and socialised with me on my birthday. So it's a reminder, actually, sometimes to get over yourself, but also a real reminder of you've got friends out there and people who you care about and like who you don't see for My God, 16 years. That is terrifying. I mean, she hasn't changed a bit. The hair colour's changed because her hair colour changes quite a lot. But she hasn't otherwise changed a bit. Well, nice to see you, Daisy, who is, yes, a multi-talented person and also does stuff online as well. So I'll give all the internet details at the end. But yes, Daisy's video is quite brief, so I think there'll be quite short points. And I don't know how much of a fan Daisy is. I know she likes Who. Both her and Derek are sort of, aficionados of the finer things, by which I mean, our kind of stuff. But I don't know if she knows her Douglas Camfields from her Timothy Coombs. Let's find out. But anyway, great to see her there. That was sort of mental housekeeping for me, really. But better out than in. I'm reminded, well, one, that she did that ages ago and has had to wait, and two, that I haven't seen her for ages, and three, she's really nice, and I've been looking forward to seeing what she has to say. So, gosh, time does now fly. But it's Terror of the Zygons, which is a story I might have quite a lot to say about, because it's one of those ones that there was the Target novel of. That's how, I did. For me, this was a classic way of appreciating a Doctor Who story. I read the Target novel. Well, we had the Target novel first, so I looked at the cover a lot. And of course, it was called Doctor Who and the Loch Ness Monster. It's one of those ones that I always knew by a different title. I was quite shocked to discover it was called something else. And for many years, I would have called it would have seemed wrong to call it Terror of the Zygons, because those Target novels were my sort of default titles, and Doctor Who and the Cybermen, Doctor Who and the Auton Invasion. But now enough time has passed that I still call Snickers Marathon, but that's for a number of reasons. Partially because Snickers is a singular thing and it's got a plurals name, and it sounds like knickers, and it just sounds a bit American. And I want my calorific chocolate bar named after a race that only prime athletes can do. But and also, I don't like change. I'm a Doctor Who fan. I don't like change, and yet I have with those titles. I now do think of this as Terror of the Zygons. I don't think of this as Doctor Who and the Loch Ness Monster, which is interesting, because I definitely would have done for a good few years of my early life, and I love that book cover. It's one of those great Chris Achilleos book covers with the Scarison on one side, the Zygon on the other, and the Doctor in the middle, and one of the brilliant sort of circular kaleidoscopic thing behind. Beautiful. So, and then it was one that I saw when I'd got to know a few fans, and I was given a few videos, bootlegs, blah, blah, blah. I'd started seeing the back catalogue now, but Zygons came quite late, and I think I spoilt it for me slightly. I've always had a bit of I've never had it up there in my top, even though anything in the Hinchcliffe Holmes era is high up. But this has never been as high as the sort of acme of that era, which to me is the acme of classic Doctor Who. And I think it's because when my friends showed it to me, they were editing something or they were doing something, and I saw Part 4 first. And Part 4 is atypical. And Part 4 also, of course, has the really bad bit with the Scarison, outside the window and that, chewing the thing, and it's not a great model shot. And so I think when I then did watch it all the way through, which I did, not that far away, I think then I borrowed the tape or whatever, but I'd already had it kind of, it'd already been a disappointment. I remembered thinking of it as being, having read the book, and a lot of those, Hinchcliffe Holmes ones, because the production values tend to be quite high in this era, had been ones that had always been a pleasant experience, and rarely been a letdown. The odd fake beard and crap bit of snow in Seeds of Doom aside. I was always slightly disappointed when I watched any Doctor Who the first time round, having known the story, because it never quite fitted into my imagination, and because I'm an inherently downbeat sort of person, which is why I have to try and battle against that all the time. I have to consciously fill my half-empty glass, and try not to do it with piss or poison. So it's a constant battle, and that's what this is sort of about. This is for irregular viewers, I am not a sunny, optimistic, cloyingly cheerful, this'll be fun type of person. This is an exercise to try and beat the dark. And I feel fortunate that in recent years I've been able to enjoy Doctor Who stories for what they are, not for what the shortcomings that manifested, or what they failed to be, how they failed to match my childhood imagination. And Terror of the Zygons, is an extreme case of that, because, as I say, I was given episode 4 first, or I watched episode 4 first. So the first 3 episodes were already kind of tainted because I knew what we were building up to. And I've always been, even though I know Camfield is great. I love the synthesis of Camfield and Robert Banks Stewart, which happens again in The Seeds of Doom, and Jeffrey Bergen too, the musician. But I'm feeling positive this time around, and I feel that on this occasion, and approaching it from start to finish, a lot of the sort of disappointment that I've maybe felt with this story, as I say, it's all relative. It's still really high on. It's still pretty high, but I don't know. I've just got a feeling, because of the way that this game plays out, and my experience of other stories recently, is that, and because frankly, I'm in the mood to watch Terror of the Zygons. So let's watch Terror of the Zygons, and hopefully have an awful lot of fun doing so. So I have it ready on the DVD, which mine was not even open, because it was one of the last DVDs, and I was in hospital when this came out, and with a very nasty bout of psoriasis. So actually, yeah. So I haven't seen Daisy since this came out on DVD. This came out on DVD ages ago, because I was in London then. It was towards the end of my time in London, because I was very poorly in hospital, and that kind of initiated a sort of everything else going wrong. So I got this on DVD, and I think I'd already been shown the missing scene. That is on the director's cut. Which is which would be the big curiosity for me, but I don't think I've actually seen any of the other extras on this. It was a tricky time, and sometimes when you have a tricky time, you fall into the things that give you comfort, but sometimes also you don't want them to be sullied by that. So I think one of the reasons I didn't watch the extras was because I thought that every time I watch this again, I will be reminded of the fact that wasn't a great time. Well, of course, now I'm reminding myself of that wasn't a great time, and when I think of the extras I haven't watched, they still prompt that. So there we go. It didn't work. But anyway, I'm not. The reason I mention that is because, one, I thought it was interesting it was still in the cellophane, so I've just devalued my DVD just for you guys. I don't know if it would be more expensive if it was resold in cellophane. And not that I would sell it anyway. If I do, you'll know I'm in real trouble. I keep the DVDs and the Blu-rays. Do you do that? I'm lucky that I'm able to do that. But yes. Anyway, listen. I'm watching the broadcast version. I'm not watching the director's cut, although I will refer to that scene that has been added, to that they would have included if they could. But I still, there's still part of me that goes, no, it has to be I have to watch the broadcast version, even though the director, would have wanted to include that scene had he been able to pull it off in the way that he wanted. But anyway, I'm going for what was shown on television when it was first broadcast, even though that happened before I was born. But it is the version that I am used to. So, with that qualification uttered and explained, and a lot of probably unnecessary scene setting, but these have got a bit more reflective as they've gone on, and all of the stuff that surrounds the episode, and indeed the contributor, I think is important to our psychological makeups as viewers and consumers, and people who have thoughts on the wonderful thing that Doctor Who is, which gets its tentacles in everywhere, into friendship and life and all sorts of other things. So listen, come with me. We're going to Scotland. We're going as far as a minibus can take us from London to an approximation of Scotland to watch Terror of the Zygons. And I'm going to press play in 3, 2, 1. So here we go. Terror of the Zygons. I still sort of think of it as being part of season 12, although it starts season 13. It's like that weird cusp, isn't it? Because it was part of the production of season 12, but it was held over to open season 13, or that's how we see it. The Tom Baker seasons are quite oddly broken up, actually, and our decision of what fits where is it's not necessarily based on proximity sometimes. Anyway, let's not get into that. I was always quite pleased when I learnt that stories had links. So, and I never quite understood all of the details, when I was really young, but the doctor has been summoned by the Brigadier, and that's something we found out about at the end of the last story. I always liked it because I think even though one of my earliest memories is season 18, and it's got the 3 E-Space stories, and lots of references. I for some reason didn't have it in my head that Doctor Who always referred back and forth. No, and I'm not talking about big continuity stuff now. I'm talking about little bits that made a story seem slightly linked and not just sort of arbitrary solo adventures. The model, I love that I talked through that opening model shot. Here's another bit of model shot, which I think is fantastic. Something about it being filmed at high speed and on film, and it being a model. I like a model. I prefer a model to CGI. Look at those little windows, and it's got a helicopter and it's got water. This is Hugh Martin playing Munro, who I will get a bee in my bonnet about in relation to the Daleks Master Plan DVD by the brilliant people of Loose Cannon, who go into great detail and work very hard, but nonetheless there's part of my brain that can't stop being cross with them because he's not playing RT operator. That is Bruce Whiteman later in the episode. He is playing a character called Munro. But I think when when Loose Cannon did the 2 commentators in the Daleks Master Plan, who were played by Bruce Whiteman and Roger Brierley, they went to Zygons to get footage of Bruce Whiteman, because we haven't got pictures of him from the Dalek Master Plan, and they use a picture of Hugh Martin because Hugh Martin is playing an RT operator, but he's the character Munro. We'll see Bruce Whiteman later, and they get so much right in the Loose Cannon things, and I hate to be the guy that's going, I think you'll find, but and yet I am bringing myself up. I could have shut up because I don't want to denigrate their work, but that's one of the things where I go, oh no, you've got the wrong RT operator, that's Munro. So anyway, which is awful because I wouldn't want somebody to listen to the whole 4 episodes of this and just pick up on one bit that I get wrong and go, what about all the rest of it? So I say that not to boast that I know which the right RT operator is that should have been on the Daleks Master Plan reconstruction. I say it to point out what an awful sod I am, and why our psyche as Doctor Who fans actually means we're as bad as the ones that annoy us, or I'm as bad as the ones that annoy me. But it also speaks to our desire, to show our knowledge, or for stuff to be right. And here's another one, Mr. Huckle, Tony Sibbald, who in Doctor Who magazine, when this story is shown to the class of 7G, is it? They don't realise he's an American character, and so the article goes, which effectively condemns Tony Sibbald's performance. You go, well, no, because he's using his own accent. You should know that, think I. He's not American, he's Canadian, but that on British telly in the 70s, that's enough. But his accent is not one he is assuming. That is his normal accent. And I'll forgive Class 7G, but I won't forgive the write-up, which again is the estimable Gary Gillett, I think, who is one of, if not the best writers about Doctor Who anywhere ever. His mixture of knowledge and application and interpretation, and most of all his brilliant way with words, means I would read anything he wrote about Doctor Who, probably more than once, probably many times. But here I am pointing out a bit I didn't like. I'm drawn to do that, and I hate myself, and I'm supposed to be here celebrate. There's loads in this that I've seen, and yet I'm not venting. It's like a confessional. So I'm confessing things I don't like me for thinking, but actually the things I'm confessing are both two criticisms of great and skillful endeavours by other creative people that I'd hate to be on the receiving end of myself. It's hard, isn't it? It's hard being us. Anyway, put those things to one side. I've got them out now because I need to say them. I had to point them out. And as I say, so look, wonderful. We have one. I like everything about this. I'm convinced by the man from the oil company who's got the tartan shirt, the rugged sort of outdoory shirt on. I love the sort of the sort of dour impassivity of the Duke of Forgill, played by John Woodnutt, and the Brigadier's sort of lightness in response to him. And I love his costume as well, the leather gloves and the cane, and the sort of politeness but twinkle with which Lethbridge Stewart deals with the sort of dour, and as it turns out, alien, but we don't know that yet. But I like, he could just be a grumpy landowner, my family has served this country for 7 centuries, but that counts for nothing these days. Although I am slightly shocked. Yes, he does acknowledge it, medieval in his attitudes. He's basically just said, if somebody trespasses on my property, I'm going to shoot them. Now, is this Robert Banks' Stewart's world of Doctor Who? Because I'm sure it's never been... I live in the countryside, and I was a bit shocked that farmers could shoot dogs, which makes me very sad. But they can if they're bothering the sheep. And I remember, they're allowed to just shoot a dog. Our next door neighbour one had their dog shot, and it was terrifying. Terribly sad thing, but apparently you're just allowed to do that if you're a farmer, because of course you've got to protect your flock and it's your land and blah blah blah. But that's slightly different from somebody who works for an oil rig walking on your beach. But of course Harrison Chase has guards with guns as well, guarding his greenhouses. So obviously in Robert Banks Stewart's Doctor Who, you're allowed to have armed guards on your property. Which is not something we really... yes, there are some military installations or big businesses or whatever that might have armed guards in some Doctor Who's, but a sort of a private estate that's got the license to kill, that's and yet it kind of... It doesn't bother me, but it kind of always... And I like there that the Brigadier sort of plays to the Doctor's Achilles heel. He goes... you want more men to die, and he hides his head, and then he's got that dazzling smile. Tom Baker is perfect in this. I think he's so good, and I like the sort of realism of the world. I buy this world that they've created with such economy. We know that this is Mr. Huckle, and he's American, which is great, and he's from the oil people, so we have that sense of that outside world there, because it's told with a very small number of characters and a very small number of sets. And both of the companions have a job, and Sarah Jane Smith with her dazzling smile, the Doctor with his sort of deep concentration and his sort of look of foreboding that he does so well. It's like he disappears, he subsumes himself in alien melancholy, where he's weighing up he's not just thinking about the consequences now. It's almost like he knows that everything has some sort of deep and ancient ramifications or echoes, and look at him, he's sort of slightly staring into the distance as his mind's ticking away. He's so good, Tom Baker, and I love this costume that he has as well. And look at Douglas Camfield going straight into his face there. And it's calm, maybe calm, but it's never empty. You want Tom Baker saying lines like that. Absolutely terrific. Douglas Camfield is a great hero of this story. And I think everything from the sort of colour palette, the lighting of it, the way that everything looks. Nigel Curzon is the designer. And look at Angus Lenny doing a little bit of business here. He's talking to her and he's noticed a little chip in the cup. Now, he's not chipped the cup there to stick that in. That must have been something he did. And they probably won't have had the cups for rehearsal. Or certainly not those exact cups. So he's decided at some point... I'll just do a little bit of that while I've got this little chip. And I love those little bits of detail that a quick thinking and experienced actor can do to add just a little bit of business to keep us, just to keep the scene alive. And he's very good as well because he's a sort of genial, sweet, chatty landlord, but he's also, superstitious. And it's funny superstition in Doctor Who, isn't it? Because are we supposed to take seriously his old wives' tales, and it's a bit like in the horror of Fang Rock as well. Are we supposed to believe in the beast of Fang Rock? I'm not sure that we are. I think they're supposed to be sort of weird superstitions, and yet the riposte to weird superstitions go, yeah, it's probably not likely to be some mythical beast. It's more likely to be a shape-changing alien, because that's much more rational. It's a bit like when Sarah has a go at Mr. Short, isn't it, in Robot, where she goes, oh, you're mad, you're like the blooming UFO people. And you go, yeah, but in this universe, the UFO people are right. Camfield is so good. Look at that. Look at the beautiful lighting on the monster and the human eyes. The Zygon design is great. I mean, there's nothing bad about this. And Lenny, I mean, Angus Lenny was well known to us when I was growing up because he was in 2 films that were shown quite a lot: 633 Squadron and The Great Escape. And he has a really good part in both, actually. So he's a movie star. And here he is, popping up in a couple of episodes of this story, giving genuine Scotsman, which is it's one of those things in the BBC's arsenal, isn't it? Well, we can't go to the actual Scotland, but we can bring bits of Scotland to us. But this is great, isn't it? This is, it is, it's ludicrous, silly sort of yokel superstition, but he does it with absolute conviction, even though he's quite a funny, fussy character. And the story is, we assume sort of a bit of hokey old nonsense, and Sarah doesn't patronize him. She absolutely humors him, but without condescension. And he, as I say, he plays it dead straight. And look at this shooting here from the beautiful film, where you've got just the amount, the ratio of water to sky is visually attractive, and then you've got the fact that the human element, Munro, played by Hugh Martin, is a silhouette, and the light glistening on the sea behind and on the beach in front. It's a beautifully composed piece of filming there, and this works to me as Scotland, and the sort of the bare scrubby beach, and we've got the Caber here, played by Robert Russell, who's previously been Doctor Who as a guard in Power of the Daleks, and was working much later too. He was still working in the late 90s, early 2000s, and Harry's capable and got agency and is on his own, has driven off in the Land Rover and is getting to do a bit of investigating and also his doctory sort of stuff. But even a shot of him getting out of the Land Rover is just, it's a really nice low angle there that gets him far away and the vehicle in, but then gets him to come close up as well, using just one shot. Very economical, but with an eye. And Geoffrey Bergen's music, for those of us used to quite a lot of Dudley Simpson, is an interesting change, and it's moody, and it's it is quite similar to his score for Seeds of Doom. So I do sort of pair these stories together, really, because it's Camfield, Banks, Stewart, Bergen. And I've always felt a bit sorry for Munro here, because he survived the oil rig he works on being eaten by the Scarrison, spends all night in the sea, washes up on shore. He's safe, he's free. He's also got the information that could tell us that the rig didn't, was attacked by a monster. But because of the capital punishment that is able to be doled out by basically a farmhand, by a labourer, by a bodyguard or whatever, he's a gilly, isn't he? But because he has the power of life and death for anybody that's on the land. It's great, because it means that he doesn't quite have time to tell us everything, because the story is being, the plot is being, delivered at the correct pace. The landlord here's got second sight, and the bagpipes go. Isn't that beautiful? The bagpipes are there to help to say we're in Scotland, even though we're in a, you know, 3-walled set in TV Centre or wherever. Tom Baker has this wonderful melancholy, and look at the look he shoots her there. Now that, if you took that on face value, is a grumpy, sour look, but we know that sourness is the sourness that you can afford between friends. And then we're slightly closer in on Tom Baker for that next shot when Harry's been shot, and he's got the drama in his face. But also, that's been perfectly done because Sarah has answered the phone with her lightness that she has. Elizabeth Sladen has a beautiful lightness that dances across the screen, not just in the way that she has those expressions on her face, but the way that she delivers her lines. And she does that silly thing where she's in a place, so she puts on a silly Scottish accent, and that sort of wrong foots us because you go, oh, Sarah's just being silly. And then her next line has to be a complete change. Harry's been shot. And it's like, whoa, hang on. And then we cut to a montage sequence of monsters that we can't see. Beautifully lit, those bobbly hands, and the spaceship that is in itself, is organic itself. And that's not enough, even though the lighting's great. You've got fades as well to give it a slight oddness and abstractness. So to say that this is a completely alien environment and these things observing from afar, this whispering sort of chorus of malfeasance is something strange and odd alien incursion. It's so well done. This is Bruce Whiteman, who is another Camfield regular. He's one of he's Scott, the Australian commentator in the Daleks Master Plan. He's also William de Tournebou in The Crusade. So he's who should have been used in the Daleks Master Plan recon. And now I've got that out there, I'll shut up about it because, my God, they did 12 episodes of absolute brilliance, and so I should shut up. Because I'm sure in everything, I know in everything I've done there are mistakes because you've got your eye on some other things, and I'm not particularly grateful to people for pointing them out because I might probably have. Also, I probably noticed them when it was far too late to do anything about them. So shut up. I'm now regretting even saying that. But when I was building up to this, I thought I do need to point that out because it bugs me. But why I could have just pointed it out when I was talking to the dog. And in future, maybe that's what I'll do. But there is something about enunciating something, isn't it, to exorcise it, even though it's not. I don't even have a dog. It's nothing to do with me. It's a thing I was allowed for free as well, as a result of hard work from other people. Anyway, Sister Lamont is played by Lilias Walker, who is brilliant. They've given her a slightly shiny face and they've scraped her hair back. She's actually a strikingly beautiful woman in real life. She's in Nigel Neal's Beasts, amongst other things, in The Dummy, and she's in The Out of the Unknown with George Cole and Peter Halliday, also directed by Douglas Camfield. Is it The Last Lonely Man? Baker's so good at this. Look at the way he's sort of assessing this, and there's something great, isn't there, about it's a bit of a visual. It's a tooth mark. Which is going to give us the size of the beast, which is a great way of doing it. And look at the foreboding on his face and the calculation. Yeah, he's weighing that up. And this is a bit of a time jump. And obviously, and this is great for me as a kid because I used to have plaster of Paris, and we used to have these molds. You had all sorts of different shapes. Flat ones that were trilobites, things like that. But the ones I liked best were ones that were dinosaurs. And what you do is you mix up the plaster of Paris, you'd pour it into a mold, and then it would dry, and then hopefully you'd got rid of all of the air bubbles, and you peel it off carefully, and you'd have a white plaster of Paris Tyrannosaurus or Triceratops. Tyrannosaurus was hard because the arms would come off. Triceratops, you'd occasionally not get a horn if you didn't fill them properly. But if you got them right, you had this lovely model that you could then paint. That was fun. That was a real treat to do that when I was a kid. Look at that. I mean, the Zygon design is brilliant. And look at the light, the beautiful light, and the fact that the masks have the Friedlander trick of the human eye and the human mouth, and some good makeup means that it's there's a seamless move, seamless move from one to the other in the physiognomy. And of course, Harry being shot in the head, it was through Doctor Who I learnt that you could shoot someone in the head and not kill them. I've actually recently done the gunfighters, and in the book of that, Phineas Clanton gets shot in the head at the gunfight at the OK Corral, but the bullet bounces off, and the bullet has grazed his skull. We're told here, whereas up until that point, I thought, well, if you get shot in the head, you're dead. I remember in the book the scene of Harry gets shot is like, well, how's he going to get out of that? So it educated me. Doctor Who informs, educates, and entertains, and I was entertained by being informed and educated that you could shoot someone in the head and not kill them. And in fact, I was talking to a friend of mine. She's so spooky. It's a wonderfully impassive and menacing performance. Lilias Walker was married to Peter Vaughan until he died not that long ago, and I never had. I've met and interviewed Peter, and I'm still in touch with his son Dave, but I've never met Ms. Walker because I don't think she's wild about giving interviews and stuff like that. Because we couldn't. I know we struggled to get people for the DVD of this as well. Certainly cast wise. That's brilliant, isn't it? All these close-ups that we've had, but they've been quite still. Look how close in this. That's a brilliantly impassive shot, and the no, but also when Harry moves, I love that, and the mouth open. I mean, this cliffhanger I could write a 10 billion word essay on, and they would all be positive. So everything from that. So we started with Harry, but when Harry moved, it becomes quite a messy shot, but it's deliberately messy because actually the shot is still held and framed very well, but it's the movement makes it messy because it's quite close up. But there's a reason for that. One, because we've been dealing with quite a lot of close-ups. The close-up of Sister Lamont, the close-up of Harry. Well, one, it helps when you've got small and probably quite sparse sets as well, because there's a budgetary element as well as the brilliant creativity. But those close-ups really help, particularly if they're of Tom Baker and they're quite foreboding. But the composition of each of those shots leading up to that cliffhanger is absolutely magnificent. And yeah, Harry starts to move and it gets a bit messy, but it's deliberately messy because it's a contrast to all the other close-up shots, and it suggests it's showing the fact that what Harry is looking at is itself messy and metamorphosing. It is, as we learn later, it is Sister Lamont, changing into a Zygon. So that sort of flurry of Harry and it's a suggestion that something sort of of a metamorphosis is happening in his view. And then of course he's saying no, and then we cut to Tom Baker, Doctor Who, saying no, but in a completely different tone of voice. So that's a beautiful little jump from the same word to a different word, but with a different dramatic emphasis, which is so brilliant. And that shot of Tom Baker on the phone with the Brigadier in the background is great. And then you're close in on Sarah because she's reporting something in, and that's quite secretive. So again, that's another close camera, but that close camera is doing a slightly different job, but it's doing its job perfectly. It doesn't feel like it's the same, even though it's the same technique. It's a technique that's been used for a different reason. And I love the way that she's performing it too, because she's doing it quite sort of low key and quite chatty, but also quite slightly secretive. And then you have that shot of the hand, the Zygon's hand, and the sort of whoop of the special sound or whatever it is that accompanies it. And then you have her scream, and the scream sort of gets cut off, but also her scream is sort of counterpointed with the silent scream of the agape maw of the Zygon as it approaches her. And just something, that little decision to go, well, let's have the monster with its mouth open. It's not a snarl. It's not a gnashing of teeth or something like that. It's a weird sort of alien woo. It's strange. It's not like anything you get elsewhere. It's not a cliche. It's a sort of strange and yet totally right choice that then crashes into one of the all-time great Doctor Who cliffhangers. I love everything, and it's our first sight of the monster, which is a fantastic design. And yeah, they look great in the spaceship with the lighting and all of that sort of thing, but it looks great in that, sometimes things that look great in their natural environment, as it were, look a bit disappointing when sort of hoiked out and stuck into a sort of normally lit studio. That doesn't at all. Well, one, because the lighting in this story is excellent, but two, it's still a glistening, And it's an orangey greeny monster, which is a great combination, but again an unusual one because the colour for monsters is green. But it's a colour scheme and an aesthetic that we've not seen in our monsters before. But also they keep it sort of glistening and you can sort of feel it, the nodules and the organic nature of it. It's so good. I mean, I think there is precisely nothing wrong with that episode. I think there's absolutely nothing wrong with that episode. And I also love the fact that, as well as that episode being great, there's a scene that was missing, that was mythical. There was a scene that was filmed with the invisible TARDIS, but it was lost. It was cut out, and we don't have it anymore. And then, did the film turn up first? The film's turned up, but it's black and white and it's silent. Oh well, at least we've got a vague. Somebody's found the film. That's nice. And then somewhere else, somebody found the soundtrack, the voice. Now, forgive me, could have been the other way around. Don't write in and don't do a podcast in 20 years' time when I can't do anything about this going, well, one of the things that really annoys me about Terror of the Zygons is that when Toby Hadoke did his podcast about it, he made a mistake and then do what I've just done to poor old Loose Cannon and Gary Gillett. As I say, I do it to illustrate I was about to use the word beginning with C, what an arse I am, rather than to call either of those gentlemen / bodies to account. Loose Cannon are brilliant and have done work far beyond anything I could ever do, and have given me hours and hours and hours of pleasure. So, of course, I've mostly talked about just one bit that they did that was wrong. Probably talk about it in the Daleks Master Plan commentary as well. I'm so sorry. Loose Cannon boys should be canonized, not loosely, actually, for their for the brilliant work they put in to provide free entertainment for people like me. And as I say, Gary Gillett is my favourite writer about Doctor Who. I think he's brilliant. So the fact that when he was writing up his brilliantly thought out article about a class of school children and how they would cope with watching Doctor Who, that he didn't know that one of the actors was using his own accent, I should have just been quiet, because I'm not fit to lick his boots. But there we go. I will. Don't if you think I'm an arse for bringing them up, don't worry. I think I'm more of an arse than you think I'm an arse, and I have to live with being me as well. So get over it, because I probably never will, and that's the punishment I deserve. Anyway, listen. That scene, they found the film, or they found the sound, and then they found the sound, or they found the film. But that's no good. You can't integrate it into the story because the film's in black and white. And then technology got so good that unlike those old Lauren and Hardys that looked like they'd been marinated in the rivers of Chernobyl when they were first recoloured, when they were sort of garish, terrible things. Recolouring has got to the point where it can meld seamlessly and be now part of a director's cut. So isn't that one of the great sort of off-screen stories of being a Doctor Who fan? Is there was this, we got this in stages. We knew that there was this thing. Well, first of all, we knew the story, and then we knew about the circumstances of this scene that was made, but that was deemed unusable. Then, but it's lost. Oh, okay. Then we found a bit of it. Then we found the other bit of it. But we still can't. So we found a bit of it, but we can't do anything with that because it's missing another bit. Oh, we found the other bit. Okay, we can meld them together. Yeah, but it's in black and white. So we say, but we've now got to the point where we can make black and white colour. It'll work. And I just love that there's enough people out there sort of digging around, but also the fact that it shouldn't have happened. That a thing that had sort of three constituent parts that all needed to be brought together in order to make it work. We found, or were suddenly able to do, those constituent parts. I think that's extraordinary. I love that. It's one of the great joys of being a Doctor Who fan, is that we're there's always, we always have the possibility of there being something that turns up that we've no right to expect to turn up, that that helps to, our understanding or enjoyment or appreciation of the story. When, as I record this, Waris Hussein's diaries have just turned up. Well, they were always there, but either nobody thought to ask him, or he decided not to be forthcoming. I mean, I've been to his house, but whatever. So we're suddenly getting bits where we might not have had an exact date for something. Suddenly it's there and it's written down. It's a first-hand account. You go, oh, blimey! Suddenly this is all juicy and exciting at a time when you'd think that everything's been done and said and found. And in fact, I started doing the Too Much Information podcast because you still think, well, we've pretty much got as complete a picture as we'll ever get. And then suddenly, 2 or 3 bits of archival material come in and go, oh no, mate, you've got gaps to fill here, and actually that bit turns out to be wrong because we've suddenly found these things from 60 years ago that change our understanding or clarify our understanding. And I wonder if there must be other television programs, there must be bits of Bergerac that are missing that we don't understand or don't know, that nobody has gone looking for. So, it's only because Doctor Who fans are so active. If this much of Doctor Who and stuff exists and has been found because we're looking for it, there must be other programs that aren't so beloved or don't attract such, finicky geeks that, they get annoyed because the wrong person with headphones on is used in a photographic reconstruction of something long lost that we happen to have the soundtrack for. Is there a cellar somewhere that's got all the film offcuts of, I don't know, an episode, a season of Z-Cars? I suppose no, because I suppose things of Z-Cars do turn up. But anyway, I don't know. We've been very, very lucky with Doctor Who. And I think it's episodes like this that that sort of point the way as to why. Because I think, it's such a comforting piece of television in the fact that it takes me back to my childhood, even though it was on. I was born when this was on, but I'm too young to remember it being on. But the Target novel, I certainly read as a child, and that story stayed with me. They all did. But it reminds me of the sort of Doctor Who of my youth, and of the kind of entertainment that we had that was sort of exciting, and full of jeopardy and full of adventure and full of scares, but never distressingly so. There's nothing even though it deals with danger and jeopardy and scary monsters, it's not unpleasant. It's not crude and visceral, although the Zygons themselves are quite viscous. But and that's partially because those 3 characters, well, 4, but Sarah, Harry, and the Doctor are a great team. It's the last time they're together properly. They've all had brilliant things to do in this episode. Tom Baker's wonderful sort of brooding presence, the sort of import with which he injects everything with his, that classical tenor of his, and Harry just being straightforward and brave, and he's a doctor and he just gets on with it, and he's pleasant company, and he's a joy to be around. But Sarah Jane, with that little smile, a little bit of enthusiasm with which she injects everything, the way she dances across the screen, not just physically, but facially and vocally. I love her. Oh God, I'd marry her. I'd love to marry Sarah Jane Smith. And I'm not saying that in a leery sort of way either, although she's a very attractive woman. She's beautiful, but because of who she is, because of what she is, because she's Sarah Jane. Because she's fun, and she's brave, and she's witty, and she's the way that she, as I've said, dances so many times. I've never thought of this in terms of Sarah Jane before today, but she does. She sort of dances across the screen, and every move that she does sort of makes it flicker with life. Oh, I love Sarah Jane Smith. And she is involved in the cliffhanger. And the cliffhanger is, I mean, there's so many good things about that episode. From all of the key players, Bank Stewart, Camfield, Bergen, Nigel Curzon, the designer, all of the cast, including Tony Sibbald, the Canadian, using his actual accent. the monster design. Jim Atchison's the costume designer, isn't he? John Friedlander. Has been doing all that latex work so that we have a lot of monsters of this period where, like Lynx and Davros, where the eyes and the mouth are mobile, but the face is beautifully alien. But there's the join between them is pretty seamless, especially for the time. But all of those things come together in that cliffhanger. You've got the monster, you've got Douglas Camfield's direction, you've got Bergen's music, and the special sound too. The lighting's great as well, by the way. You've got Sarah Jane and the Doctor, both of them pitching their performances exactly right. And they all come together in that cliffhanger, which has that hand and that brilliant and that genius touch of just going, let's just have the monster with its mouth in a sort of O shape. It's not gnashing its teeth, it's not gnarling, it's not snarling, it's not trying to bite her, but it's curious and weird and strange. And of course, she's screaming, and yet it's the one with its mouth. I love that cliffhanger. If Carlsberg made cliffhangers. So the cliffhanger is my favourite thing about episode 1. An episode 1 of Terror of the Zygons, because I haven't seen episode 4 yet. This is so much the better way to enjoy it. Is, I think, perfect. There is nothing. The model shot of the oil rig is beautiful. The night shooting, I know it's a model, so of course they can make it at night, but it's at night, and the lighting, the interior lighting, is beautiful. The colour palette is good. The Doctor's even got a sort of bit of tartan to augment his costume. The little gentle ribbing of the Brigadier. The relaxation in John Levine, because he's working with Douglas Camfield, so he's just a little bit more naturalistic and a little bit more... He's having a little bit more fun with it. He's not quite as uptight as he sometimes is. The beautiful filming, the pacing, the drip, drip, drip of atmosphere, which is there in the music. I mean, the music literally sort of drips and plops with atmosphere, nighttime, and it's and water. The music is like the sort of slosh of the inky depths of the ocean, and inkiness is dark. And the first time we see the rig, it is dark and it's nighttime. And the way that the story plays out, the way that we're fed little clues, and the way that the Doctor pieces it together and is realising the nature of the threat and his increasing foreboding because of that. And wonderful lines like, it may be calm, but it's never empty. That is such a great Tom Baker line, and they write for him so well during this period. It's like Robert Holmes knows exactly the sort of lines to give him that he can really inject with all that sort of otherworldly foreboding that Tom Baker does so well. And yet he's funny, and yet he's he's impudent with the Brigadier, but then playful as well. And he's sort of sour with Sarah, but it comes from a sort of place of mutual understanding and respect. And it is this, and if you that sour look that he gives you, if you judge that on the surface, you just go, oh, he's not being very nice. But it's not. It's there's so many layers underneath that. And I think sometimes, Doctor Who fans are a little bit guilty of not interpreting the meaning behind a performance like that. I've seen it written that Tom Baker, Tom Baker's Doctor's not very nice to Sarah. No, that underlying love and respect is absolutely there between them, and some of the things they do, some of the way that he talks to her is a sort of disguise for that, because one, because he's a spiky alien, but two, because he might not be that great at communicating, and three, also because it actually is one of those things that you do with people that you actually have a rapport with. I think that's all there. I think there's so many subtleties there in that dynamic. And also you've got the because you're in out in the way, you're not in a metropolitan setting, you're able to have a sort of a landlord with second sight who's got a couple of ghost stories as well, which could be a little bit hokey, but it's not, because Angus Lenny, who gets it just right, he has the right mix of being sort of likable fusspot and mystical storyteller, and it has fun with that. It has its cake and eat it with that. It sort of says, this is fun and a bit silly, but actually if we take it all deadly seriously, it helps us. It gives ballast to the fact that this story is about futuristic aliens and stuff, but we're going to make it work twice as well, because we're going to grab mythology from the past, and of course an unsolved mystery, the Loch Ness Monster, which is this great part of our legendary cultural storytelling, to give it another dimension. So yeah, of course they realize that, at the end they go, oh, well, it's coming from Loch Ness. Well, although we get that in episode 2 as well, don't we, when the Brigadier triangulates where it's come from. So you suddenly got, and as I say, the book of this was called Doctor Who and the Loch Ness Monster. So you've got that I almost didn't mention, because you almost take that for granted, the fact that this is the story that explains the Loch Ness Monster. And we love a Doctor Who story that explains, anything from putting the Great Fire of London to any sort of myths that we have. Certainly when I was a kid, any Doctor Who story that sort of explained a thing, I was suddenly like, what, my program actually has the answer to that thing that we learnt about in school. Oh, great. So it's got all of that. It's perfect. It's a wonderful instalment of Doctor Who. Now, I caught a little bit of Daisy's introduction there, and she said she's going to choose 5 things. So I don't know if she's going to choose episode by episode or not, because bear in mind, she hadn't had the advantage of listening to any that had gone out, because I hadn't done them at this stage. So it may be that the rules have not been adhered to in the way that regular listeners may be used to, but because this is from early days. But let's see, I may be preempting that incorrectly. What's Daisy's first choice / hopefully favourite thing from episode 1?
And the first thing of my 5 things that I'm going to talk about is the ship. Organic technology. Fantastic. That idea absolutely blew me away when I was younger. And we've seen it lots of times since. We've seen it as GOM 2 in the episode of Next Generation, which is called Tin Man. Farscape had a living ship with a symbiotic pilot, didn't it? And then recently, Star Trek Discovery has a spore drive, which again brings in that organic technology. I found that fascinating.
Now, there we go. There's me going, I don't know if Daisy knows the difference between Douglas Camfield and Timothy Combe, and she's just then given me an education in stuff that I know nothing about. So there we go. Because, of course, Derek and Daisy are very knowledgeable about Star Trek. And, of course, Farscape hadn't even considered. So she knows her stuff, does Daisy, which is why I asked her. As I say, I just wasn't sure how well she knew her Doctor Who. That's a great choice. I mean, the ship would have been something I would have chosen, but I didn't choose it for episode 1 because I couldn't not choose the cliffhanger, and because it's an embarrassment of riches. But I suspect in episodes 2 or 3, probably I had half an eye on next week. I've got to choose the ship, which I now cannot, because the rules are, if it gets chosen, I can't then choose it. But of course, it might be that she later chooses something that I've already chosen, then I do get a point for that. So anyway, so there's still hope for me, but I cannot choose the ship, which is a shame, because it is one of the great elements of the story. And hats off to designer Nigel Curzon, who I obviously won't be able to eulogise about when I choose the ship, because I now can't choose the ship, because attempts to do, Claws of Axos aside, where Kenneth Sharp does a brilliant job with that set as well, but it's beautifully lit as well, and I think it's slightly more cohesive than the Axon ship. which has the occasional sort of plastic chair, space blobsity, and the odd flat that kind of sticks out slightly, I think. And I also think the lighting is superb in there as well, and it melds with the costume design as well. So there's a lot of sort of thought between everything working very well together. In terms of design, and it's a great contrast to the more straightforward design of the human buildings. So yeah, absolutely with you, Daisy. I love the ship too. It's just I would have chosen it on a different episode, because for episode 1 I chose the cliffhanger. So I think this is going to be fun, because I absolutely adored that episode, and I hope you did too. And if you're not watching as I'm rambling, and most people don't, to be fair, do you? You just most people don't watch along with the episode beside in front of them, which is fair enough. But if you're listening to this because you just listen to this as a podcast when you're out and about and you don't always watch the episodes, go and watch episode 1 of Terror of the Zygons. I mean, it's really good. And in fact, I'll tell you what, I'm just going to get on the phone and I'm going to ring you up and I'm going to tell you how good it is, because I just... Thanks ever so much for listening to Happy Times and Places, which is presented by me, Toby Hadoke, and my special guest, who this time around is Daisy Connolly, who can be found on Twitter at Dazed. That is spelled Daized. I'm grateful to Daisy and to the patrons who make these podcasts possible, and they include Trevor Smith, Richard Smith, Andrew Snedden, David Spencer, Matthew Speddings, Joey Stephen, David Spofford, Chris Stokes, Adam Stone, Mark Swan, Paul Taylor-Greaves, Jason Tyken, Dr. Gary Thomas, Richard Thomas, Jason Thompson, Sidney Truitt, Van Man Sang, John Turner, Lee Wakeley, Gary Wales, Jeff Walker, Alistair Wallace, Gavin Ware, Peter Ware, Kevin West, Rich Wiggins, Chris Williams, Mr. Withit, Lee Wood, Ruben Herfindahl, Stephen Moffat, Peter Burns, James Curray-Smith, Peter Harness, Ronald Hayden, Rob Leonard, Christopher Meredith, Gavin McLean, Richard Straw, Neil Tate, Nick Tedstone and David Trainier. The music is by Dave Gates, the artwork by Dylan Patterson. Would you like your name read out with gusto in the closing credits of a podcast, even a very obscure one that delves into the minutiae of Doctor Who? Then you can become a patron at patreon.com/Toby Hadoke. That enables me to keep these ad-free. I mean, I will keep them ad-free, but this justifies my financially unsound practices, because I just think adverts are a pain, and I could do without them. It's fine. Let's just do it this way. Patreon, where you can pay as little as £3 a month to get advance releases, bonus material, exclusives, and you get early access to all of the podcasts. This one that you're listening to now, if you're listening to it on iTunes, say, or Spotify, you'd have heard 6 months ago at patreon.com/Toby Hadoke. And everything, apart from a couple of trinkets, the odd badge or two or something as you ascend the ladder, everything is available. All the content, for sure, all the releases, all the podcasts and everything like that is all available at the lowest tier, which is £3 per month. But, it goes right up. It's a sort of pay what you can, what you're inclined to do, whatever. It's the new model. It's the new way of doing things these days. I'm not a new model. I've never looked like a model, and I certainly am not a new one. But it's the new model for self-employed artists, I don't know, sufferers of verbal diarrhea and who are in need of attention can ask people to fund their lifestyle choices and offer in reward some attention seeking and verbal diarrhea. That's what this is, but it's got a theme tune and some rudimentary editing skills. So if that's the sort of thing you like to pay for, you can, and you don't have to. That's the beauty of it. But if you want to, patreon.com/Toby Hadoke. And as I say, there are inducements. If you don't want to submit yourself to a monthly commitment, you can go to ko-fi.com/Toby Hadoke. And that's like a tip jar. It's a way of buying me a virtual coffee if perhaps you've liked a particular podcast or you're feeling particularly generous. But I know times are tough, and we can't even afford butter. Do you know what I mean? So you don't want to be spending it on self-employed people with dad issues. If you'd paid me enough attention, fella, I wouldn't be doing this now. It's all your fault. Anyway, You can go to iTunes, Spotify, Podbean, all those places. It costs you nothing to go there and to give these podcasts 5 stars and to give them a few lines of review. That really helps. It enables people to know about these podcasts. It just gets them a little bit more visibility, and it means that all of this is not for nothing. I'm on social media. I'm on Instagram at toby.hadoke. I'm on Twitter at Toby Hadoke. I'm on Twitter again at Hadoke Podcasts. That's just the stuff about these podcasts. And I have a Facebook page as well. That's where you look for Toby Hadoke Comedian, not my personal page, which I'm going to make more personal as time goes on. Thomas recorded a video for this as well. I'm thinking of putting the videos on the Patreon page as exclusives because frankly I'm so behind with the editing of the YouTube versions of these, and to be honest not enough people look at them to guarantee that to warrant the time that they take really, whereas getting them together for iTunes or Podbean and doing them as a podcast is just a bit easier and a bit more satisfying. I'm not going to waste the video version. Something will be done with them at some point, but they're certainly on pause at the moment because I'm writing a book about Quatermass. I mean, I'm not writing it right now, but I should be right now, but I've got a bit of a headache, so I thought I'd record some post-credits nonsense instead. But yeah, I'm writing a book about the Quatermass serials, which, when this goes out on iTunes, should be out, guys. So put it on your Christmas list. And it's been a labour of love, and it's taken me a very, very long time to do. And I'm currently quite pleased with it. And the editor hasn't seen it yet, and he'll probably make it much better. So anyway, that's what I should be doing, and instead I'm doing this. But you can find me on all those social media places. Please follow me on them all, because that tweaks my algorithms. And as you can tell, I'm feeling a little bit in the need for some algorithm tweakage. So get those tweaking fingers out, please. I think I was quite neurotic in that podcast, in my need to point out the things that were vexing me, and then my own vexation at my vexatious nature. Oh, it's a spiral. Is there any Doctor Who fan that doesn't have some kind of neurosis or mental health issue? I've been on Twitter recently. I'm not sure there is. Are you? Hello. Are you a normal Doctor Who fan? Then please write in and tell us all the normal things you get up to, like just being just a functioning human being. There must be. I'm not doing the whole aren't I wacky. It's a real millstone round my neck, the way that I do sort of mental gymnastics that are prompted by self-loathing and then become self-justification, because when you're justifying yourself, you're actually trying to go, no, I'm all right, I acknowledge my faults, but then you delve more into your faults, and actually your own acknowledgement of your faults makes you hate yourself for being so conscious of one's faults, and the fact that one has to get into too much. See, it's a spiral. Why don't I just have a lolly? Why can't I just sit and have a lolly? I want to sit there and have a lolly. That's what I want to do. You'll know I'm happy. If I die, and if they find me on my sofa with a lolly stick in my gob and a great big smile on your face, you'll know I've died happy. But what I'll probably do, though, is have a heart attack, scribbling a note to a newspaper about some factual error that they've got, some fact that they've got wrong about Doctor Who, and then the heart attack will be brought on by the fact that it's a fact that is wrong because I've made it wrong because of something that I didn't properly check and had used as... So yeah, it's an article I've written that's got a mistake in it that I've stupidly let slip through because I was under stress and doing too much and focusing on other things. So I stupidly let a mistake through that I then read, got really annoyed about, started to complain about, then realised I'm complaining against myself, and my whole body will just give up. And rightly so. And I think the world will breathe a sigh of relief. But until then, I'll carry on vexing.